Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Storks. I didn't really think this movie would be any good. Well, it's by the same studio, Warner Animation Group, as the Lego Movie. You know, I thought maybe this isn't as bad as like every trailer or how I thought it would probably be. And it's not very good at all. It's like a lot of things colliding in at once. It's using the Warner Brothers style, which this is, a Warner Brothers movie, the Warner Brothers, Looney Tunes animation style, which when it's funny can seem like comedic genius, like rapid fire joke after joke hitting and hitting and hitting like the classic Looney Tunes. And in some ways that hitting's metaphorical joke wise, and other ways it's just Wile E. Coyote getting hit in the face. But in Storks, it's the way they use it in that insecure way where you're like, wait a minute, are you just hitting with jokes and jokes because you're afraid I'm going to leave and hate this movie? And a lot of other failures in that whole medium are also like Food Fight, which said it was trying to do a Looney Tunes style thing, or Norm of the North, for example. But also the concept of this movie is flawed beyond degree. Storks and little cute babies have been used in animation for a very long time, going back to Walt Disney shorts and Looney Tunes, and they're usually good for starting concepts and for things to play off of, but they don't really get that to work with the baby part. And the Storks, the whole concept of them isn't a really great concept. It's very convoluted and crazy, and it's not the kind of concept like Legos that you played with and had an affinity for when you got older. After a certain point you went, yeah, the Storks thing, you just use it for little kids, and then you find out that when a man and a woman love each other and then fuck each other's brains out, that kids happen. And I think Storks feels like a little kid movie in that you'd have to be a kid who hadn't seen that many movies to think this is anyway an acceptable piece of cinema, because it's really awful. That it has so many different ways it fails. It's like watching a major studio totally fail in on itself, and almost like you're not sure how they failed with Nick Stoller and a good animation studio and all these interesting ideas going on within it, and kind of a bigger lie with promise than the time your parents said, no, we didn't just get married because your mom was pregnant, you just have the dates wrong. The Storks, who used to deliver babies but now work for cornerstore.com, which is sort of supposed to be Amazon but not enough for anyone to sue over or anything like that, so they deliver that stuff. But the reason they stopped delivering babies because this one stork refused to deliver a baby and the tracking device got lost, so now they have this girl who's 18 years old because that was how long they did. And then there's a stork who this is not a joke, by the way, this is the plot of this movie for real. There's one stork and he's going to be the boss, but he has to fire this girl because she's 18, so now they can get rid of her legally, although why they didn't try to find the parents or put her in foster care or something, but whatever, they don't even address that one. I don't know, or maybe they just hid it under the rug, or I really don't know, because apparently like storks can't be seen with babies, so clearly there was a controversy, but the fallout of which is just they took care of this girl. So then she is going to be fired, but then they put her in this weird thing, and then she creates a baby with their baby making machine, because this film lies under the pretext that you need a giant machine technology to make children, which is not only completely unsustainable, like how did creatures create beyond that? I mean, that makes like less sense than two people putting their genitals together and stuff. But so then they make this baby and they have to deliver the baby because by the way, there's a whole other plot with this family and this kid, and he wants a sibling with ninja skills because his parents pay attention to them because they're realtors. And then so now they, back to A plot, they have to deliver the kid to this family, but in a collision course of what they try to pretend is wackiness, they have to get this baby to this family, but all this stuff happens, and then the company, they can't find out that he was supposed to fire her. Did I say that? I don't even know because I got lost. But basically they have to get the baby to the family, this new baby with the girl who was the old baby who's now a person, and deliver the baby and then get her out of cornerstone.com so that the stork can be the boss. I honestly don't know if that made sense in the movie, and I don't know if that made sense right now. I mentioned the Warner Brothers style, and I think one of the problems with using the Warner Brothers animation style and that rapid fire jokes that Warner Brothers and Bugs Bunny were so known for is that idea of when it works, it's like Chuck Jones is a fucking genius. Every time you see one, you're just like in awe of how funny it is. But then when I see other ones, you really have to have some good jokes in there and even have a looser concept. And there have been other feature animated films, not just shorts, that work under that. Emperor's New Groove, for example, and even Disney's Peter Pan used a lot of Warner Brothers influenced animation style, and there are probably others I can't think of, but it has failed in things like Food Fight and Norm of the North. I know both listed that as is Warner Brothers animation. A lot of times when you see that in a kid's film, it does feel insecure. It does feel like, hey, we have so many jokes, you can't leave, we're giving you a lot of jokes, so one of these has got to stick. Like Tina Fey does that a lot. It doesn't necessarily work when you throw out a million jokes, because like if you throw out 20 and 5 work, people usually just remember the 5 and don't remember the other 15. I think with Storks, it really just fails under doing that, but I think a lot of that is because the plot of this falls under the problems with kind of the Apatow school, which Nick Stoller pretty much worked with. Apatow obviously did. He did Forgetting Sarah Marshall, he did Neighbors, he did Get Him to the Greek, which are funny movies. Specifically Get Him to the Greek and Neighbors is they have a simple premise. They need to get Russell Brand to the Greek theater. In Neighbors, it's like this family lives next to a frat. Hilarity ensues. And those are Nick Stoller's strongest films. Now, one of his worst films is The 5-Year Engagement. The reason it didn't work, it was too convoluted. And that's honestly the problem with a lot of the Apatow school. They're very good when it's a very simple premise and it's very funny. And that even worked with Sausage Party, which Nick Stoller obviously knows Seth Rogen worked with him and worked with him this year. He also directed Neighbors 2, which I didn't see. Sausage Party has more of a simple premise and you can bounce a lot of things off of that simple premise and say more. But when they try to say too much with the plot itself and the basic like I can't explain the movie without going into, okay, well, there were Storks, but now they work for an Amazon thing, and there's a family, and there's this girl who used to be a baby but they didn't deliver her, and there's another baby, and the Stork's gonna be the boss. It's like, that's too many things. That is the biggest problem with Storks, is you have to get your head around all these various things that aren't complicated necessarily, but it's really not that funny what they're doing. The Storks idea isn't very interesting. It isn't a very good idea for a cartoon at all. And I don't think when they're using this, like, what are they saying with this baby? Like, the Storks have to deliver babies. But like a high concept thing that used the Warner Brothers style that works really well was like Genndy Tartakovsky's Hotel Transylvania 1 and 2. Oh, they're monsters. They have to change the way they live, that you understand monsters to be. Sure, they're using monsters as an abstract concept, just like they're using Storks, and this is an abstract concept, but it kind of works within that because you understand the world of the Mummy, Frankenstein, Dracula. Storks, they just deliver babies and shit, and they've already changed, and you're like, oh, so the arc is they have to change back? And it's also weird because Nick Stoller's helped write the Muppet movies, The Muppets and The Muppets Most Wanted. And I was kind of surprised, like I audibly in the theater when the credits came and it went Nick Stoller, Nick Stoller? Like I was shocked. I was really shocked because I just didn't expect this movie from him. And I was really disappointed because of that. Unlike Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who were able to do both animation and live action very seamlessly, this doesn't even feel like the same director, which is often the case I've noticed when you see someone be involved in a live action film and an animated film. But it's interesting that the Sony animation studio seems to be able to do the freewheeling, freeform kind of Warner Brothers style that's more jokey and rapid fire jokes and everything like that much better than this film, which is an actual Warner Brothers film. It's also interesting that the two studios that use that style both kind of started with Phil Lord and Chris Miller, with them doing Cloudy the Chance and Meatballs, and then with Storks they started with Lego Movie, and they were executive producers on this. This is also directed by Doug Sweetland, who directed Presto for Pixar and worked at Pixar as an animator like right out of school from Toy Story until Presto, and has had a lot of problems getting various films for him to direct. I just really didn't like this movie. I didn't find it very funny. I didn't think the nature of it and the concept worked whatsoever. It just doesn't understand what to do with the concept. Sure, the technical side of the animation was very nice, but like comparing this to a film about birds that was animated that came out earlier this year, which was Angry Birds, this film doesn't even seem to do that. It just has so many convolutions within it that it just doesn't really work as a cohesive narrative. It just kind of works as a kind of entertainment you put on for kids to kind of shut them up so you can do something else. It's not really trying to say anything about anything really. It's just trying to hope these characters are interesting enough that it works. And even though it has like some great voice acting from Andy Samberg as the head stork and Katie Crown, who I'm not familiar with, but she did the girl in it, and they do have some interesting things about it that kind of work. It does feel like Nick Stoller's film 5-Year Engagement, where you want it to work and the director wants it to work, and it doesn't, and it's just sad. Nobody thought the Lego movie was going to be good or say something about Legos and imagination, but that's all wrapped up into Legos themselves, and that's wrapped up into the film you're actually making a concept about, the thing you're making a concept concept and a film about. And storks are things that carry babies that are basically there to not tell your kids how erections go in vaginas and stuff. And like, that's not like, what are you doing with that? What are you gonna say with that concept about the basic need, the basic idea, the basic lie that is storks? And they're not really doing anything with that. Hell, Santa Claus is a lie for kids too, but we actually try to make semi-good movies about that and do interesting things with it. And Storks just fails even at that level. It's like they didn't really understand what they're saying with the concept. They just went full steam ahead with it, and we just got this whole kind of like a disaster, you know? Even the short, they played like a Ninjago short before this. It reminded me what I like about the Lego movie, and I was like, maybe this will be a cool studio. It kind of got me into it. And Storks, the movie itself, got me out of it. I never really got into this movie. I like some of the voice acting, and they could do the kind of fast-paced style, but just felt like gags for gags' sake. With so many studios having their own animation studios, you'd hope that there'd be better animated films and riskier animated films. And it's weird to go from a film like Zootopia that really pushed its concept and said something with it, or even having a more adult-themed animated film like Sausage Party, and having Kubo, and having all these like big animated films this year, and then we get to Storks, and it just feels like a colossal letdown in terms of this year. But also going into it on a basic movie level, it just fails so completely. It's just not interesting in the least. I probably think it's one of my least favorite mainstream big budget animated films I've seen this year, because I just don't understand what you would like about it. I just feel like it's a fairly forgettable animated film. It doesn't let me have any hope for their animation department making anything that isn't Lego involved. You know, when I watched that opening Lego short, The Master, whatever, it showed like a looseness to it, an ability to play with the form and do interesting things and fun things. And Storks is like so convoluted and stupid and unfunny and not playing with the form at all. It's just boring. It felt like kind of like more of like a low budget animated film that should probably come out in September. It feels like something a studio bought and just kind of were releasing because they bought it on the cheap, rather than a film that a studio made. And it's interesting because Warner Brothers seems to be a studio where they can make really interesting, promising films that I didn't think a major studio could make, like Mad Max Fury Road or the Lego Movie, and then they can make films like Storks and, you know, Batman and Superman and stuff. And that seems to be the dynamic there, where it's like stuff that you're like, holy fuck, what the hell happened there? And I think Storks is like that, but it's a disappointment for animation, and it's a disappointment for the studio. Some are saying it's an okay animated film, but I don't even think it's okay, because it just washed over me. It makes me more and more disappointed as I think about what I witnessed. It was really just hard to get into this film, and I don't think anyone ever will. I think kids will just enjoy it while they're kids, but when they're older and they're kind of going through their DVDs or just deleting things off a hard drive, they're going to be like, I don't really need Storks anymore. And I think it would fail to deliver for most audiences, because the concept, really, you're just going to have to explain to your kids what sex is anyway, and it's really not a good enough of a movie to waste having that uncomfortable conversation with. So if you have seen Storks and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. To be honest, I kind of wish it was the Snorks.